The restaurant wasn't fancy. Just one of those places families choose for practical celebrations, long tables, warm lighting, a little too loud for quiet conversations. My graduation dinner. My mother had insisted on inviting everyone. My aunt, my cousin, even my dad's old friend who treated every family event like a comedy show. I arrived a few minutes late, still holding the folded paper in my jacket pocket. I had read it so many times that the creases were starting to soften. My job contract. No one at the table knew about it yet. When I sat down, people clapped lightly. A few raised their glasses. My mother smiled with relief more than pride, like a long process had finally ended. My father leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said, loud enough for half the table to hear, "looks like you actually made it." There was laughter. It wasn't cruel exactly. It was the same tone I'd heard most of my life, half joke, half surprise. Menus were opened. Drinks were ordered. Conversations scattered around the table. For a while, everything felt normal. Then my father reached under the table and pulled out a small gift bag. Bright colors. Cheap paper. He slid it across the table toward me with a grin. "Got you something." I opened it. The first thing I saw was the printed message on the side of the bag. "Barrel passé." My father chuckled before I could even react. "Couldn't resist." My aunt laughed. My cousin covered her mouth trying not to. Even my mother gave a small smile, the kind people use when they want to keep the peace. My father raised his glass. "We honestly didn't think you'd make it, sweetie." More laughter. Not mean laughter. Just comfortable. Like the joke made sense to everyone. I looked down at the bag for a moment. Inside was a simple keychain with the university logo. A normal graduation gift. But the message around it stayed in the air longer than the laughter. Barely passed. It wasn't the first time I'd heard something like it. Growing up, I was always the one teachers described as trying. The one relatives asked careful questions about. The one people encouraged gently, like success might be optional. When my siblings succeeded, people said they expected it. When I succeeded, people said they were relieved. At some point during dinner, someone asked the usual question. "So what happens now?" My father answered before I could. "Well," he said, still smiling, "first we celebrate the miracle of finishing school." Another round of laughter. My hand slipped into my jacket pocket. The folded contract was still there. I hadn't planned a speech. I hadn't planned anything really. I just knew the moment would come eventually. I stood up. The chair moved slightly against the floor, not loud, but enough for people to notice. The table quieted. I held the gift bag in one hand for a second before setting it down. "Thank you for dinner," I said. My voice came out calmer than I expected. "And for the gift." My father raised an eyebrow, amused. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded paper. "I actually wanted to share something tonight." I placed the contract on the table. My aunt leaned forward slightly. My cousin stopped scrolling on her phone. "It's a job offer," I said. "I signed it last week." No one spoke. "It's with a consulting firm in Chicago." The city name alone shifted something at the table. They asked me to start in 6 weeks. I wasn't looking at anyone in particular when I said the next part. Turns out finishing the program wasn't the hard part. The silence deepened, but it didn't feel hostile. Just unfamiliar. My father looked down at the contract. He didn't touch it. "You already signed it?" he asked. I nodded. A few people murmured quiet congratulations. My aunt smiled, a little surprised. My cousin whispered something like, "Wow." My father leaned back in his chair again, but this time the posture felt different. He glanced at the gift bag still sitting in front of me. The words barely passed looked smaller now. "I guess we underestimated you," he said. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it wasn't a joke either. I shrugged lightly. "Maybe." The waiter arrived with another round of drinks, unaware the entire mood of the table had shifted. Dinner continued after that. People asked questions about the city, about the company, about the move. The conversation sounded more careful now. As the night ended and everyone started gathering their coats, my father stopped beside me near the door. "You're really leaving?" "Wes," he nodded slowly. "Well," he said, "good luck." It sounded sincere. Outside, the air was cool and quiet. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment before heading toward the parking lot. The contract was back in my pocket. The gift bag was in my hand. I didn't throw it away. But for the first time in a long time, I realized something simple. The person they thought I was had already stayed behind.